to tonight's posted agenda.
There is a change. The closed session, we would like to add a closed session after 10, after the staff and board comments. There will be no action to follow closed session.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the change of closed session with no action to follow at the end of the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Gaspar, second by Blakely. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we will move on to public comments. If anyone wishes to address the board this evening under public comments, please see our recording secretary, Kathy Scafidi. She will give you a pink form that has our board policy for addressing the board. Please put your full name and address on the form as we are required by state law to provide, to keep a detailed set of minutes for our meetings. If you prefer to provide comments in written form for the entire board, there's a blue form that Kathy can give you. When you address the Board of Education or Administration will not enter into dialogue on an issue. This doesn't mean we don't take your issue seriously. If you do have unanswered questions, a board member or an administrator will get back to you regarding your matter at a later date. If you have any props or visual aids that you wish to use, please have our board secretary, Dr. Hitchens, review them prior to your presentation. We ask everyone that addresses the board to please come to the microphone so that you can be heard. And Kathy, do we have all the pink sheets? We do. All right. If anyone else would like to address the board, you'll have an opportunity to share your thoughts in writing on a blue sheet, which Kathy would then distribute to all the board members. So the first person I'd like to call forward is Debbie Remper.
Thank you. My name is Debbie Rumpert, and I'm the mother of 2 children currently attending 2nd and 3rd grades at Alice Gustafson School. We have several Gustafson parents. Would they please raise their hands here with us tonight? Thank you. I'm here tonight representing this group and a large group of 3rd grade parents from AGS who are diligently working together in an effort to secure a 4th section for 4th and 5th grades. We want to inform you that we are currently collecting information and data specific to how the large class sizes and the dynamics of this particular group of kids has affected their learning at AGS since kindergarten. This is all being done with Dr. Jan Wright's approval, the principal at AGS. This class as a whole has a host of social, emotional, and behavioral concerns, compounded by safety concerns for the 4 medically fragile children in the grade. The largeness of the current 3 sections lends to instructional challenges directly related to lack of physical space. The children are up against serious logistical concerns when it comes to navigating the classroom efficiently and safely. This year, the added pressure of adopting the Common Core curriculum into current teaching methods has created a perfect storm of imbalance for our children in what is considered a benchmark year in the lower grades of learning. Last, I would like to point out that at the very beginning of this school year, the current 3rd grade teachers recognized these needs and lobbied with the administration for a 4th section, which was unsuccessful. As the year has worn on and the needs are not getting any better, we as parents are finding it absolutely essential to carry forth on this very important effort on behalf of our children. We do appreciate your time, and we look forward to an open dialogue with Dr. Wright, the school board, and administrators to secure a 4th section at AGS for 4th and 5th grades. Thank you.
Chris Borelli.
My name is Chris Varelli, and I'm a Batavia taxpayer. Last year, the board failed to act in the best interest of taxpayers by voting unanimously to increase the levy by an unprecedented 13%. Since then, I've been following the board's decision-making process regarding the allocation of taxpayer dollars and have a few observations and recommendations that I would like to share. First of all, because Dr. Hitchens was gracious enough to spend some time with me to discuss the concerns that I have shared with the board, I have a deeper understanding of the challenges that you face while balancing the demands of the state, taxpayers, and our students. I now understand that a portion of the administrative and ancillary teaching positions hired and planned for are the result of meeting state requirements. Because meeting state's requirements consumes valuable resources, the effective and efficient allocation of our resources by the board and administration becomes even more important. That leaves me wondering why we are considering hiring for or retaining 10 additional positions in the face of declining student enrollment. To be specific, I question the board's consideration to hire additional coaches. As a matter of fact, I was shocked at the board's reaction to Dr. Newkirk's presentation during the previous board meeting. Dr. Newkirk presented metrics regarding the efficacy of the coaches currently on staff working with the educators of BPS 101. The two main metrics in focus were the amount of time spent in the classroom and teacher feedback regarding their experiences working with the coaches. Amount of time spent in the classroom may be considered a metric, but it has nothing to do with results. Bernie Madoff spent a lot of time at work, but he didn't do anything good. I'm not insinuating that the coaches are having a negative impact. I'm merely pointing out that activity does not equal results. Teacher feedback isn't even close to being considered a metric. It is more like an opinion. Numerous studies have been conducted by social psychologists that indicate that familiarity breeds liking. For example, in a 1968 study by Charles Gertzinger, students eventually displayed friendship toward a black bag that sat in the back of their classroom. In addition, during Dr. Newkirk's presentation, one educator revealed that a coach completed a lesson plan for a teacher who was struggling to keep up with her workload. Given these 2 points, is it any surprise that the teachers rated the coaches favorably? As a taxpayer, I have to question why the highest paid teachers in the area need on-staff coaches. I do not believe the financial onus should fall on the taxpayer if a teacher is not meeting expectations. If it is merely a case of introducing new techniques, can this not be achieved through continuing education? What really concerns me is why the board is not asking these questions. Maybe you're asking these questions in closed sessions, I don't know. It really concerns me that the board didn't question any of Dr. Newkirk's metrics on his presentation. There were no metrics that were results oriented. Our number one focus here is the students, and I didn't hear anything in that presentation regarding how the coaches are improving student learning. And quite frankly, I don't think you can gauge that in this short of time, which again is why I'm surprised. When asked about coaches, the Geneva School District replied, quote, "We do not have instructional coaches as our principals serve in that role. Apparently they see as little value in coaches as I do." I'm almost done. Are you hiring coaches merely to spend your allotted CPI-based levy increase? In case you didn't know, I do not believe you have to spend that much every year. Instead of breaking new ground by hiring coaches, why not innovate with expense control? My challenge to you is to increase the levy by half of the CPI-based allotment each year for 10 years. This small commitment will save Batavia taxpayers nearly $30 million over 10 years. In conclusion, please recognize the facts and deny the hiring of additional coaches. Uphold your fiduciary responsibilities and begin to effectively allocate our resources. Strive to spend less than the approved annual levy increase. Prove to your constituents that you're not just a rubber stamp for the administration. Thank you for your time.
Next, I would like to call forward Amy Nelson, who's going to update us on the total TAC activities.
Hi, I'm Amy Nelson, and I am a parent from Rotolo Middle School. I actually have kids at 3 different schools, but I'm here for Rotolo Middle School. I'm on the BIT committee, and I'm just here to tell you what's going on at the middle school, or some snippets of what's happening. Let's see, there are many exciting things happening at the middle school. At the beginning of the school year, we jump in with our school fundraiser, which is a magazine drive, and we made $17,000 through our magazine drive. The proceeds from this go towards things such as document cameras, classroom sound systems, and not all classes have those yet, but our goal is to have that by the end of this summer. We have a fall and spring book fair to help raise funds for our learning center. The students participate in numerous food drives throughout the year. The exploratory department also does the food drives, and there's actually another food drive this month, so they continue those going throughout the months. As you know, we have many sports the students can participate in at the middle school. I think this is exciting as the students try new things and have new athletic opportunities, figuring out what they enjoy doing and finding a good fit for themselves. We also have numerous clubs and organizations at the middle school, as you know, and I'd just like to highlight a few of those. One is the FOR Club, and that's the Friends of Rachel Club. That is in conjunction with the Rachel's Kindness campaign that was started at the high school and middle school in memory of Rachel Scott, who was a Columbine victim. And her mission was to spread kindness within the school and within the community. And I think that's something we can all agree on needs to happen as much as possible. So the FOR Club has done numerous things. There's about between 20 to 100 students who are involved in that. And they do various things throughout the school to promote kindness. Right now they're working on a Spread the Kindness Week. So that will be exciting coming up. They've done lots of things throughout the school, posting notes, making thank you cards for teachers and paraprofessionals, just doing things to express kindness. And I think that's a wonderful attribute to develop in children. The Builders Club, this year they have done a humanitarian service project. They participated in Chip In Christmas, adopting a family in need over Christmas. They've worked with Feed My Starving Children. They've also done HELP, which is Homes for Endangered and Lost Pets. They've participated in that. And our topics at PAC meetings, which is Parent Advisory Council, which all Rotolo parents are invited to. We'd love to see more out there attend. The meetings this year have been on instructional coaching, Common Core curriculum. They've reviewed discipline handbook and made suggestions and reviewed data on instructional coaching. This spring, we can look forward to Rotolo Palooza, which is a big event that the Music Buffs puts on that the students and family really enjoy coming to. And finally, I just wanted to speak personally as a parent. I've been very pleased with the success my children have had at the middle school. I have been very pleased with the staff and always have been in awe of just how relational they are with the kids and just really helping them to become true individuals with different strengths and different areas to work on. They've always shown great care in my children as people, as individuals, and that matters to me more than anything. I want my kids to excel academically, but even more than that, I want them to grow in character qualities that make them good human beings. And I feel like the staff at Rotolo has really succeeded in doing that. So that's all I have to share. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Okay.
Amy.
Okay.
Do we have anyone from Batavia here this evening to address us?
Yes.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Cindy Kane, and I am a member of VESPA as well as on the negotiating committee. And I just wanted to introduce myself as well as talk a little bit about what a paraprofessional does. As we come into negotiations, I just wanted people to be aware of kind of what we do and our role in the schools. Basically what we do is we assist students with special needs as well as students in the general population. And I'm not sure people always understand that that's what we do. A one-on-one aid might be in a classroom, but they're also helping with the whole population of students, as well as what they're doing is they're making sure that all students get the best education they can. So if a one-on-one aid is with a student that might be disruptive, they make sure that that student is either kind of talked to so that they can get their behavior under control or remove them from the situation to make sure that every student gets the education that they deserve. We provide a wide variety of duties that assist teaching staff and students, including teaching small groups, one-on-one support, and whole class assistance. We are the jack of all trades for the school district. We are able to jump from one assignment to another and within just a moment's notice and help a teacher help another staff member, jump in for an aide who needs assistance. So we're kind of everywhere and all over the place, and I think we're a really vital role in the school district community, and I just wanted to share that with you and introduce myself. So, thanks, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Tony Millay to the microphone.
Good evening. And I would just like to add to Cindy's comments that we greatly appreciate the support that they do provide for us and our students. Excuse me. Just a few things on my list here. In April 10th, 11th, and 12th, myself and 3 of my colleagues will be attending the IEA Representative Assembly. It's our annual meeting of 600 union bosses that come together and determine in a democratic fashion what our policies, legislative platform, budget, and professional advancements will be for the year. So that will be happening April 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. The next item, the staffing plan that was presented last meeting that supposedly you'll be voting on tonight. I would just like to stress a couple of concerns that have come up within our association. Since 2009, we have had large class sizes since the recession has hit. And we believe this is negatively impacting student learning. We do realize that we didn't get into high class sizes overnight, and we won't get out of it overnight. It takes some time, and we do understand that efforts have been made over the recent years, mainly this year, a little bit last year. Actually, last couple of years, we've seen improvement there, but we still have concerns that the current staffing plan doesn't do enough to target that area of class size as we believe it could be. And finally, the last item that I have is in accordance with our negotiated agreement. I'd like to present you with a written notice to begin negotiating, kind of a formality at this point because we must start before May 15th according to the contract, but within 60 days. So, but we are ready to begin negotiating.
Excellent. Thanks, Tony. Next, I would like to celebrate successes. I'd like to invite, see, I'm skipping you guys every time. I moved you and then I can't. Jake.
Thank you.
That's what I said.
So, a few things we have going on at Batavia High School right now. To start off, we have Yellow Ribbon Week, which is for suicide awareness. It's a very important issue in many teen lives.
I can't hear you very well, Jake. Can you do? I know you can.
I can project.
I do.
So Yellow Ribbon Week we have going on, and it's for suicide prevention awareness. And all throughout the week, we've had very nice announcements made in the morning to promote a good day. And also during every single lunch, we are selling both wristbands and t-shirts, the color yellow, to get the word out. 2 days from now, we have the Batavia Fine Arts Center hosting the Showtime event, which features our singing group's Legacy, which is a choir, and Swing Singers, which is a show choir, which also includes singing and dancing. It's a very big event, and it allows them to showcase everything they've been working on all year, and that is this Thursday night. We also had a career day that just passed. We had a bunch of professionals come in, and we took about an hour in the morning for each student to get to view 2 potential jobs that they selected that they might be interested in the future. And to start off, the general consensus was that kids weren't exactly excited about it, but afterwards, people came to realize that there actually was some value in going in to see, what they might be interested or not interested in. Many people's opinions changed about what they wanted to do that day. There was a value to the students. Coming up, a couple of big events. Young Hearts for Life takes place May 1st and 2nd, and those are free signups for students to come in and get their hearts tested, and signups for that have started now. And the biggest item probably is the ACT is coming up this April. It's on the 23rd and 24th. I know myself, I've started studying for it already, and it's probably the biggest day for juniors this year. Last but not least, for my very reliable partner, I have heard that we have some very talented musicians in the room tonight, and I believe some congratulations are for us with that. So I'm sure we'll celebrate that coming up here. And we from high school, Megan as well, hope that everybody has a wonderful spring break.
And I'm sorry that I skipped you now to meeting this in a row. Now I'm excited to invite Rita Fairborn and the RMS Honors Junior Orchestra going to Carnegie Hall.
All right, good evening. My name is Rita Fairborn, and I have been the orchestra teacher at Rotella Middle School for the past 18 years. I would like to introduce 3 of my 8th grade students, Dixon Anderson, right here, Rachel Eng, and Phil Swanson. Dixon and Rachel are both cellists, and Phil is a double bassist. The reason I'm sitting here before you with these 3 young string musicians is because I nominated these dedicated, hardworking students for an opportunity of a lifetime. I enjoy providing my orchestra students with experiences they would not get in the typical middle school orchestra program. I personally believe the key to having a rich and fulfilling life is to have unique experiences from which an individual can draw upon and find meaning later in life. Such an experience presented itself last year, and I seized the opportunity for my students. I am proud to announce that Dixon, Rachel, and Phil have been selected for the 2014 Middle School Honors Performance Series at Carnegie Hall in New York City. They will perform at Carnegie Hall this June with the Honors Junior Orchestra. Participation in the Honors Junior Orchestra is limited to the top most talented middle school performers from across North America. This Honors Orchestra will consist of only 80 middle school students, and 3 of these students will be representing the total middle school. Dixon, Rachel, and Phil were nominated by me last year in the hopes that they would be accepted to at least audition for the Honors Junior Orchestra. It was not a guarantee that they could audition. Last fall, they were given the opportunity to audition for the Honors Performance Series. They worked hard with their private teachers to prepare their audition submission. And just last week, they were formally invited to participate in the Honors Junior Orchestra after a review by the Honors Selection Board. Acceptance to this middle school orchestra is a direct result of the talent, dedication, and achievements demonstrated in their application and audition recordings. These students will join other performers from the United States and Canada for a special performance at the world-famous Carnegie Hall, a venue that marks remarkable musical achievement. According to Liesl Brusha, Honors Performance Series Program Director, quote, "Being selected to the Honors Performance Series is something each junior finalist should be extremely proud of accomplishing. We process thousands of nominations annually, selecting only the most talented performers. Working with these conductors and performing at Carnegie Hall is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that these student musicians never forget," end quote. The Honors Performance Series at Carnegie Hall in New York City challenges talented students to perform at their very best. Students will rehearse and perform under master conductors and have the opportunity to perform before invited representatives from collegiate and professional music programs. Though much of the students' time is focused on performance preparation, it also allows students to experience the best of the sights and performance arts in New York City. We are proud to recognize Dixon, Rachel, and Phil for their accomplishment to participate in this exceptional orchestral opportunity that is earned by only a few middle school students across North America. Congratulations to all 3 of you.
Rita, when are they performing?
In June.
Do you know when in June?
It's like June.
I might be there.
And the public can get tickets.
Okay.
So you could email me and I could give you the information about getting public tickets.
Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congratulations,
Thank
Mike.
you very much.
That's awesome. Item number 7 is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a method of streamlining our meetings by taking one vote on a number of routine personnel and business items. Each of the items is detailed in the agenda and has been appropriately posted in the board packet. Mr. Newkirk, please read the consent agenda.
Sure, there are a number of items on tonight's consent agenda, and 18 items to be exact. I'll talk through these briefly. Items 7.1 to 7.4 are meeting minutes for both special meetings, or committee meetings, and our regular meetings. 7.5 is the personnel, a lengthy personnel report, including resignations, retirements, non-renewals, approval of part-time staff, and there are specifically 2 resolutions to be aware of in that consent item. There are routine financial items, including a complete bill listing for the board's use, and the treasurer's report, item 7.7. There are 2 donations to Grace McLean Elementary School included at 7.8. There are 4 FOIA requests under 7.9 that are detailed for the board. 7.9 is the request for destruction of audio tapes, as the time has elapsed on those. 7.11, which would be the approval of the IHSA membership for next year. 7.12, which is our joint agreement with the Fox Valley Career Center, where we send approximately 88 students to engage in career and technical education there. 7.13 is the revision of the 14-15 school calendar based on feedback from teachers, parents, and the community. 7.14 would be the approval of the RMS Rising Star School Improvement Plan. This is a required plan by Rotolo for the first year, but this would be an ongoing resubmission for them. It needs initial board approval. 7.15, Amy Nelson talked about the magazine sales. This would be approval for next year for the Great American Magazine contract for RMS. There are 2 course proposals for Gateway to Technology classes at RMS under item 7.16. Item 7.17, which would be transferring funds from 2 scholarship accounts in possession of the district to the Batavia Foundation for Educational Excellence. And 7.18 would request your approval of the consent agenda, including the 2 resolutions under personnel.
Are there any items on the consent agenda for removal or for clarification?
I just have a question. What is the scholarship?
There were 2 scholarship accounts that the district has had for a number of years. Chris, do you want to talk about this? I should.
Yeah.
No,
What is it?
well, many years ago, and I don't know exactly when they were first created, but there were obviously 2 endowments made to scholarship funds for Batavia High School graduates. The district has been the fiduciary of those accounts since they were created. However, these scholarships have not been awarded for many years. I checked back with those that formerly worked at the high school, and no one can remember these being awarded. So in order to utilize the funds best, we are asking to transfer the funds to the Batavia Foundation for them to work into either a scholarship program or grant programs.
Do you know why they weren't awarded, or nobody applied?
That I do not.
I've made about 50 phone calls related to these scholarships to try and find out as much information as possible. There's no concrete information. We can track down no errors to the 2 people who are named in these scholarships.
So the money's just sitting.
It's just sitting there collecting very minimal interest and not going for what we assume was the original purpose, to benefit Batavia students and the Batavia district.
We were never the ones to award the scholarships, in the first place. It would be a separate, board of people or separate group. So we just felt it appropriate to transfer that to the foundation, who does, award scholarships or award grants for our students.
I was just curious.
If I have a question, does it have to be removed from the consent agenda?
No, clarifications are totally appropriate at this point too.
I have a question on the calendar. 'Cause I wasn't at the policy committee meeting when I think it was discussed. Can I have clarification as to why the first day of school is being changed this late in the year? Or actually this close to when the next school year is starting is maybe my
Sure, that date was removed based on feedback from our staff and then some community, which felt that there were long periods of time in that first semester where there were not days off. So that was moved forward one day so that we could add a day in November, which would be a non-student attendance day, adjacent to our parent-teacher conference schedule, just to accommodate that.
Is this late to be finalizing the schedule? Do we usually finalize it earlier than that?
We have talked about moving forward, changing the timeline for approving the calendar because we approved this one so early. We noticed that there were some things that needed to be tweaked, like the spring break piece of it. So moving forward, the policy committee talked about when is the appropriate time. We engaged in a discussion about whether or not to do 2 years at a time. Some people like it that way, but then we noticed problems that when we approved the calendar too early. So we'll continue those discussions at policy committee, how many calendars to approve and at what time of the year.
Can I jump in since I'm on the policy? One of the other issues was trying to be somewhat consistent with some of our surrounding districts. And Kane County ROE usually has a set guidelines, and when I've talked to Dr. Hitchens, Brad, they're going to talk to them a little first, see if there's some firm guidelines to make sure. Certain times were supposed to be when the district were supposed to be off together. Somebody might look at the calendar wrong. I was not on the board, but I'm never going to be for a 2-year. I understand, I like to plan ahead too, but you never know when something can come up. So we're trying to just, from other people saying, if they are in other districts or so on, to try to just match it so we're considered. Plus, we also have the Fox Valley Center and the Mid Valley Center, where we have maybe 150 kids that leave from the high school to go over there. That if they're off, then they're not going to be in session and so on, or what, So there are some issues in that we really needed to be on. Don't like doing it, but I think we really need to be consistent and hopefully we'll get back on track. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit from what we talked about at policy.
And administration has said that they're going to work very hard with families that are impacted by the fact that we're changing our calendar, because we recognize that it is a late adjustment, and so we're going to try to reduce the impact wherever we can.
I did like that email that went out about, or the talk about, if some families had already planned on it, we should, somehow be somewhat accommodated, especially if there's a lot of money at stake or something like that. I mean, something to let. Hopefully this won't happen again, maybe, but nothing this major, hopefully.
I noticed also this addition, the asterisk about the last day of school with the 5 emergency days. Is that new to the calendar?
Did we add that this year?
Well, that is.
I guess, can we really highlight that more? Because this year, it was obviously, we had some serious weather-related days. Next year, we might not have them, but yet, you never know. You have to plan for that, and therefore making people aware down the road that, just because it says the last day of school, don't accept that. You never know.
And that was talked about also, as this year was kind of unique. But basically, unless they've changed the rules, is basically you have you have to make up to at least 5 days. So if we had, let's say, 10 days of school off because of snow, technically, basically 5 days we have to make up. And so we usually go 5 days after whatever our normal last day. So they did put this in the last one, the little asterisk. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just highlight it or something, something just as a case. I agree, I mean, it's just something to be brought up, but that was talked about also. I had just heard, just off the point, I guess somebody out east, they had 30 days of no school because of all their snow out east. And they said they got to make up at least 10 days. I know, I'm just saying, but that's because of all the snow they had too. I heard that 30 days and they got to make up 10. That's what that's the education. Yeah, it's a month. Yeah, that's right. So hopefully, it gets cleaned up. Hopefully that helps.
Any other questions, clarifications?
I do have one on the scholarship thing. I know I talked to Dr. Hitchens on it. Is that because that was something that was already in there, that scholarship with that, and we're gonna transfer the money, is that gonna be a separate entity though, that somebody from the high school can apply for that through the,
We don't even know
BEFA
what the
or
purpose
how?
of it is. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in.
I'm just wa-
I sit on the Education Foundation, and
Okay.
so when Dr. Newkirk first brought it to us, he, as he mentioned, made 50 phone calls to try to figure out if he could figure out the original purpose of the scholarships or what the reason for it was, and he could find no directing information, so that's why he said, because the Education Foundation does exactly this work, we can't arbitrarily make up a purpose for it, so he's
Right.
trusting that we will use it in a way that benefits the students.
That's what I was just trying to, and I forgot to ask her when I met with her about if it was specifically for something. I was just, okay, so.
Yeah, because
okay.
then we would have rolled it in and done exactly that.
Very-
It's just months.
Okay, very good, thank you.
With money available. You got to?
Thanks for making the phone calls.
Yeah, thank you, Brett.
It was actually pretty fun. I learned a lot about Batavia history.
Any other questions?
Can I just have a little background on what the RMS Rising Star Plan is? I tried to read through that very long contract thing. Is it like a school
Sure.
improvement plan?
There's a state-required school improvement plan that's triggered when a school,
Falls under.
based on AYP status. The district has one of these plans as well as Rotolo Middle School. And it is the state's version of school improvements. So it's an electronic system through the IRC, which also does the school report card. So the team at Rotolo assesses these indicators of best practice. So if there's an indicator of best practice, they look, they read about it. They're between like 2 to 4 pages in length. They say, all right, where are we in terms of this best practice? And then, is this a priority for our school based on our information? They do that 50 times. It's a very lengthy process. There are 118 total indicators, but they have to assess 50 of them in their first year. So they've gone through that and prioritized what are the best practices that Rotolo is going to work on. And then they build some simple action plans related to that. The district went through, we don't have as many indicators. There are 24 indicators that we were responsible for. And now each year, there's a timeline set by the state. We go in and update our progress towards those indicators. So this is a compliance piece, but it's also one focused on getting us closer to best practice.
Anything else? If not, then do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Impastato, second by Locke. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Yeah, give you 1 second.
Sorry, stupid. That was really unprofessional.
Blakely,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Hodge,
Yes.
Impastato,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Dukes,
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes.
I am so sorry.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Glacy to share with us the 21st Century Learning Plan.
Yes, and I'll be presenting this 21st Century Learning Plan with Dr. Newkirk as well.
Oh,
So,
sorry, I should know
that's all right. The 21st Century Learning, as I'm sure you recall, the board has talked about online and blended learning these last few months and considered entering into a consortium with a number of area school districts. We've also talked over the course of the last year about one-to-one, or providing a device, a personal technological device to each of our students, and we report on the status of our pilots for one-to-one in the fall. This 21st Century Learning Plan is a conglomeration of those two, the pilots in work on consortium and online and blended learning, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So tonight is just an informational and discussion item. We're not taking any action. We're not actually recommending anything at this point. We just want to have a conversation about where we might be headed in the future. So I have to say, if you know me at all, you know that I have a certain disdain for the term 21st century learning, because we're 14 years into the 21st century learning, or 21st century, and these skills I would consider essential skills. They're not skills for the future, they're skills for now. And I'm going to ask Brad to talk about that a little bit more.
Sure, and this relates to a number of presentations, as Tony said, that we've had, and discussions that we've had at the board level over the past few months especially. We've talked to you about our student achievement data. We've talked to you about Common Core standards. Today was the first day that Batavia was a part of a pilot for the new park assessments as well. So with changing curriculum and changing standards and changing assessments, we're really looking for the tools that we can put in the teacher toolbox to help improve instruction. And it's not about success on standardized testing, but it's really about preparing our kids for what lies ahead of them. And I want to show you a quick illustration of how all of these changing standards, how the changing assessments really impact instruction, and that's what it's all about. Here is a sample biology question from the AP Biology test as it was previously conceived. So you can see that a student, to answer this question, would have to know some content knowledge. They'd have to be able to recall facts about this content and these concepts, and they'd have to have mastery over academic vocabulary. But standards have changed, and they have changed on these assessments as well. The next slide, and I don't know the answer to that. My botany is pretty weak. But here's an example of a biology question that our students will start to encounter on the AP Biology exam. And you can start to see that this is a different type of question. And again, it's not about success on standardized tests, although that is something that we want for our kids. It's about what is the instruction, what are the skills that it's going to take to answer a problem-solving type question like this. And as we look at the skills that students are going to need, these are really 21st century skills. Critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity in order to solve problems like these. So this is kind of symptomatic of the shifts that are happening within education right now. Shifting standards and shifting assessments, and we want to help support our teachers in shifting instruction. So instruction will look differently answering that first question, towards answering that first question, to this question as well. So it's really about supporting our teachers, and to me, technology is the support that we've been hearing from our teachers. They're really clamoring for more technology in their classroom to help them do instructionally what they want to do. So Tony's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the classic, this illustration, these questions represent a shift in how classrooms look nowadays. The prior question that you saw would be one that you could probably get the answer to. You could Google the answer relatively easily. So it's not necessarily about recall anymore. It's really about understanding. You probably could Google this answer, but I'm sure it would take you quite a while to figure it out. And you'd have to understand the underlying concepts before you did get it. So we're fundamentally in our society, we're moving from what they call information scarcity, where you had to come to school to learn. Where with technology now, that's really not the case so much anymore. You still come to school to learn, obviously, but the information is available elsewhere. And so the teacher, rather being the sage on the stage, as they used to call it, is now really a coach and a guide for students to guide them through that educational process. And our statistics in Batavia are pretty interesting when you think about technology that's available in the home to students at home. And we did a survey of parents when they registered for school for this upcoming school year, and the statistics were interesting. 96% of all of our students that are registered as of today have access to broadband or high-speed internet in the home. There's only 1% that don't have access to the internet at home. The other 3% have internet at dial-up speeds. 57% of our students have smartphones, which I think is an interesting statistic. And 99% have access to some sort of technology device in the home. So, as a community, our district is very much using technology at home, but that starts to look a lot different when they get to school. Access becomes a serious issue. So what I wanted to talk about, just highlight some of where we are as a district. And in the previous few months, Brad and Steve have presented to you on CAC, the Curriculum and Assessment Advisory Committee, and the state of that committee, PLAC, which is the Professional Learning Advisory Committee, and also on instructional coaching. So it gives you some idea as to the integrated systems that the district is developing to look at curriculum, content, and professional development, and supporting our teachers in the classroom. We have a very robust infrastructure of systems that are actually integrated and communicating with each other to help guide that area of the organization. What you haven't seen yet is kind of the state of technology. And I'm going to give a very, very high-level overview of that very briefly now. And just by citing some statistics, quite frankly. 2 years ago, the district hired a third-party firm to do an audit of our technology, of our department and our infrastructure. And they were very thoroughly impressed with the state of our infrastructure and the ability of our technology department to support that infrastructure and those devices. In fact, they went so far as to say that our technology team and department is probably one of the top 10 best in the state of Illinois. It was that impressive. They were very impressed with our focus on process and our efficiency. And when we benchmark ourselves against other districts in the area, one thing that I never would have imagined is that we actually spend less on technology per student per year than almost every other district that you can compare ourselves to. We spend just under $200 per student per year, which when you add it up is about $1.2 million per year. That's still a lot of money in the grand scheme, but in comparison to our neighbors in other area districts, it's nothing. Very little, I should say. Also, in terms of performance, the tech team boasts an 87% on-time rating. So when a teacher puts in a help desk ticket or requests assistance in the classroom, 87% of the time, we resolve that ticket within the expected window. And we also have a very high customer satisfaction rate. It continues to climb. It started climbing from 95% in about 3 years ago, and we're at 98% this year. So our teachers and our students are happy with the support that we give in technology, the tech support. But they constantly tell us that they don't have enough access, that students don't have enough access to technology in school in Batavia. So that is the single most largest barrier that we have. So there's a disconnect between what technology students have access to at home and what they actually have here in school. And it's impeding instruction and some instructional strategies that teachers would prefer to use in school. So in light of the success that we have seen from our one-to-one pilots at Gustafson School and at the middle school this past 2 years, we're considering a recommendation to bring to the board next month a one-to-one plan for all students to get Chromebooks. We've been testing Chromebooks with our 6th grade over the past year, and things have gone very well. And the Chromebooks are very attractive to us because of their price point. They're about $250 to $300. They're pretty reliable, and the district already uses the Google Apps platform, so people are mostly very familiar with how that works. And what we'd like to do is to provide Chromebooks for all of our students in grades 6 through 12 in the first year, and then come back and provide devices through all of our students at the K-5 levels. Now, to make this happen, we'd obviously be shuffling around the technology budget and making some adjustments, but looking at primarily our leases, because we lease all of our computers in the district, and so as we purchase more of these computers, obviously there's fewer computers that we need to lease as a school district. And the savings that we would realize from that, putting that obviously toward these expenditures, but also considering student fees. And these devices, like cell phones these days, don't last really more, we don't expect them to last more than 2 years. So the overall recommended plan here would be to ask parents to pay for roughly half of that device. So about $150 over the course of 2 years, or $75 a year, would pay for the device, and then at the end of conclusion of those 2 years, the student would keep the device, would own it outright. And then the cycle would start again, potentially. But I want to pause here and ask for questions that you have, what that might be. Because it's kind of complicated how this would actually work. Go ahead.
You were asking for questions.
I was asking for questions, and usually I don't, but I just wanted to make sure before we move to some of these other questions, other concepts, before I finish my presentation, I wanted to check for understanding.
During those 2 years, who actually owns that? If it were to be damaged, or
Yeah, that was a
replaced, something happens to it, lost, stolen, blah, 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 what's the story? Is it insured?
Insured. There are some options here, and school districts are already doing this in other areas. In fact, one of the statistics that is out there, we did a survey of 30 area school districts recently, and of those 30 school districts, 80% either already have a one-to-one program in place or plan to execute one within the next 3 years. So there's a lot of districts that are dealing with this issue. And what most have done is essentially this. The student leases the device from the school district, paying through fees. The district subsidizes the cost of that lease. And then the student is responsible for any loss or damage to that device. It has subsidized. We obviously are subsidizing that cost, so it would get pretty costly if students are losing them on accident or on purpose. But what can also happen too, some districts offer insurance programs. Other districts ask parents to look into their home insurance, or they can purchase some optional insurance. So there's a number of different ways that we can do this, and depending on feedback that we get from the board and from parents, we have some options moving forward. But generally, it would be either an insurance policy or the student or parent being responsible for that damage.
So Tony, I'm a 6th grader and I go into 6th grade and I get my Chromebook, and 8th grade it's mine.
Then you have to buy another one?
But then when I
you
go
buy
into,
another one. Yeah.
okay.
When they get it,
But you have,
when they
But you
get
have
it. when
But by the end of the conclusion, if I could answer that question really quickly, at the conclusion of those 2 years, the device will have, they're not very rugged devices. They're relatively inexpensive. They're not going to last much more than 2 years if they're used every day. And the battery life is going to diminish over time. So when you have a device that's been used extensively for a couple of years, it's not going to necessarily make it a full day on a charge. You're going to charge it constantly through the day. So these devices, while they still have some useful life in them, it would not be very conducive for use.
At that point, they probably just wouldn't need to bring it home.
Right.
okay, so it couldn't be shared within a family?
And you could share with them.
Meaning
At home.
could my 6th and 8th grader use the same, when my 8th grader left, my 6th grader coming in couldn't have his tablet?
Not in school, no. There wouldn't be enough useful life, or the use for that device probably wouldn't make it through the amount of use that it would get in a regular school day.
They'll probably use it at home.
You can use it at home lightly, but you're not going to get that intense usage in school.
What about parents or families who do not want to, they want to bring their own device?
That's a good question. And so the purpose of a one-to-one is to make sure that all students, to the extent that is possible, have the same devices, so teachers don't have to develop different curriculum and content for students that have different devices. And the district purchases apps and different content that pushes it out to devices that they own, and we wouldn't be able to have that ability if students brought their own. So it's very important that students, and on this model, it's very important that students have the same device.
When they get it after 2 years, what's left on it? Like when I get my laptop at work after 4 years and I get to take it home, it is not coming with all the licensing that the CPF has it when I'm taking it back and forth. It's coming clean.
Right. Yeah. What's nice about the Chromebook is the operators, there are apps. We would take obviously the apps that we pay for off of it, but it's still a fully functional laptop, and it's a fully functional Chromebook, I should say. It's not going to run Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word, but it'll run web-based apps.
Tony, what about filtering? When kids take it home now, and now they're up in their bedroom. Will there be filters that are coming from us, or
Yeah.
how's that going to work?
The exact same filter that we use here in school would be wherever they took that device. And so they're actually coming back to the school to go through our filter and then back out to the,
Would they be taking them home to do their homework and stuff?
yes.
What about those families that couldn't afford it?
What's our assistance?
So there would be, just like we do with all other school fees, there would be assistance for free and reduced status.
What if someone said, I don't want this piece of equipment in my home, I'm a conscientious objector?
And we could make provision, if you don't want it in your home, that's one thing. If you don't want it in school, it'd be very hard for a teacher to create a lesson and deliver it digitally when a certain student wouldn't be allowed to use it. So that was.
Well, and I was to say, when we're at school, right, I'm less concerned with the actual law. Is there any possibility that at the end of the 2 years, I know on various technology, you can turn it in and get credits for whatever, is that something we'd be able to look into if, you know, somebody has 3 kids in the district and every 2 years we're getting a new piece and all of a sudden I have 5 iPads or 5 Chromebooks at home? Is that something we'd at least have tried to look into recycling credits for equipment that could be refurbished, et cetera, et cetera?
Equipment that could be refurbished, it would be very difficult to support refurbished equipment.
I'm just wondering if like Google would take it back and credit the family or the school district or you know, whoever we're buying it from, the dealer. You know, like Apple will give you a credit toward a new purchase.
You could.
Right.
I mean, sometimes there's some, you know, the students, with this model that we're looking at right now, and it's subject to change, obviously, based on the feedback that we get. But the student would own that device. Now, that once they own the device, they could sell it to a private party, certainly.
Right, I guess I'm looking
There could be a
at,
second.
I'm buying another one, so would we try to find out if our supplier would take whoever doesn't, I've got two at home already, and we'll give you a credit towards your new one, you know what I'm saying? Just like if I take my old iPhone in, and they give me a credit for my new one, except that we're helping our families do that through us, and we're,
I don't know of any manufacturer that takes back old.
Sure, we'll.
So you're gonna,
But we could look at the same.
so, once, if this gets all reinstated after 2015-16, starting in 3rd grade, family's gonna go through 5 Chromebooks for one child.
Potential.
And so there's no,
Something else will come along.
and you don't think they last longer than 2 years?
I don't expect.
Is there another device besides a Chromebook that might be more expensive, but yet would last longer than 2 years?
There are other devices that would last longer, yes. You're probably going to get to 3 years. There's some districts that push them as far out as 4 years. But honestly, with I'm not sure that I would think that would last long term. Some devices, batteries don't really last that long. Those kind of charges, especially like a MacBook Air. I love technology changes too, but I love this MacBook Air. It's awesome. In fact, if we could afford MacBook Airs for all of our students, that's what I would recommend. But this is a $1,200 laptop. And if we were expecting to use it for 4 years, we'd have to replace the batteries in it, and it's not designed to be serviced, those sorts of things. So there's a whole host of issues that come along with these devices. So the 2-year model, while quick, where you're spending money on a relatively inexpensive device that isn't going to last as long, is probably more efficient in the long term than another
Do they all
device.
have their own models? Do they all have their own model numbers? So when somebody loses theirs, they're not going to take Sally who sits next to theirs. They're going to be able to identify who's the student.
Yeah, well, there's serial numbers on the device.
What about the computer labs that all our schools have right now? All our schools have computer labs, and we're not replacing every 2 years. Those last?
3 years. That's one of the reasons why.
Would we still have, with the use of the Chrome, this type of technology, would we still need?
Still need some computer labs, yes, because the Chromebooks can't do everything that we're doing with all of the software in our classrooms. So at the high school level, for example, there's about 1,000 computers in that school. With this model we're looking at, we could probably get that number down to 250 because we have specialized lab for computer aided design and language labs. Obviously, those sorts of programs are going to run on Chromebooks. So we still need some computer labs, but we're not going to need as many. So that's where the cost savings comes from. But I go back to that efficiency model. Other districts spend, on average, about $300 per student per year on technology. Some as high as $1,200. Some of the districts with these really nice MacBook Airs. But that's where our efficiency comes from. We're spending less on technology because we're replacing the devices and spending less time fixing broken stuff. We don't have as much staff on the technology team because when something does break, it's under warranty. We can send that out to the manufacturer to have it repaired. And we're focused instead on providing service, and that's why you're seeing high customer satisfaction rates and quick turnaround time on tickets. So even with this model that we're looking at, so the costs aren't going to go up exponentially. Looking at repurposing some of our technology budget, I only expect that our costs in the first year will go up to spending $260 per student on technology. And that cost will go down over time as some of the infrastructure improvements that I'm going to talk about next.
Are we to be able to knock off one of those workbook fees that they have to pay for? Because they're going to be able to use it as an app instead, so we're not actually upping? Because I have 3 kids and I paid $485 in fees, and now you're going to add $225 more to my fees. And I can tell you that golf course ain't doing that well, so I just like to see something go down as we add something into it.
That's actually, when we talk to students and teachers, the first 2 questions we hear is, will this enable me to carry fewer textbooks? Because the backpacks weigh 80 pounds. And
we know that high schoolers don't like to use those lockers. So.
Right, and so if I'm paying less on those workbooks, like you talked about, and those other consumables that are now digital, will that obviously lower fees? And the answer to that question is, in both cases, eventually. So this is a process, it's a transition. We don't just simply snap our fingers and it happens, but that is our intention over time. We're not going to be purchasing traditional textbooks, paper textbooks, and the consumables that we use when we can convert them into digital resources, shouldn't cost as much. So in theory, backpacks will be lighter and fees will be less. But
Do you see that this model offers more flexibility since we are only tied to a piece of equipment for 2 years? And so if there's the latest, greatest update, we're poised to take advantage of it. If prices go down, we're replacing with less expensive.
yeah, exactly, and that's part of the rationale behind it too. Certainly, keep in mind that the iPad was invented in 2010. It hasn't even, actually this month the iPad is 4 years old, and the Chromebook came out last September. So this device didn't even exist. In fact, we never considered one-to-one for our students because it never would have been affordable for us. It never would have been conceivably affordable for Batavia until the Chromebook was introduced. And now we're looking at this $250 device saying, you know what, that would actually work. We could pull this off.
Does Google have any grants or any, as they grow their Google education area, are they doing anything? Or
It's called a Google Chromebook, but it's actually manufactured by the traditional PC manufacturers. So there's Acer and Samsung and HP, all those folks. And so they're not generally, no. There are not incentives. So there are some incentives when buying in volume. In fact, there are so many so many districts that are interested in Chromebooks right now. There's something on the order of 40,000 devices just in kind of north of the Chicagoland area that school districts are considering purchasing. And we're trying to get together and bundle our purchase together so that we can get that volume discount. So $40,000 or 40,000 Chromebooks, people are kind of peeking out thinking, that might be an interesting deal.
What about the delay that we had with the Chromebooks this year because we couldn't get them because there was such great demand? Do we foresee, if we really were ambitious for next year, that there could be a delay?
There could be a delay, and that's one of the things that we're talking about in this ad hoc consortium that's looking to purchase these Chromebooks. Is they're looking at the volume and what could potentially be the scarcity of these devices. So we're going to try to hash that out.
Can what the idea of the fact that obviously technology changes at a rapid pace, as with the 2-year commitment, you should be able to adapt that. You also mentioned the textbook. If something goes in the print, I don't know how often a revision comes through, but the cost of it, having 3 college students, the cost of books, it's incredible. You can have a revision pretty easily adapted there. So it's an interesting concept.
But there's more.
And I'll let you segue into.
Sure.
What happens if we don't, what happens if our district decides not to do this? Where does that put us in the big picture? We say we don't want to do this.
Yeah, that's my greatest concern. So as I mentioned earlier, we lease all of our computers, and so that's one of the reasons why our model is so efficient too, is that most school districts that you look at, their computers are somewhere between 3, 5, 7 years old that they're maintaining. They're blown away when I tell them that there isn't a single computer, there isn't a single device that students and teachers use in this district that is more than 3 years old. That provides extraordinary efficiency. But we're locked into this 3-year cycle. We replace the elementary level 1 year, the middle school level another year, and the high school level the 3rd year. So this is the year for the high school. And we know that there's 1,000 computers in that building and almost 2,000 students, and it's not enough. It isn't going to be enough. And the computers that we have in there right now are going away at the end of the school year. And we either enter another 3-year lease agreement in the traditional model that we know is inadequate, or we do something new. So there's an opportunity here to take advantage of this and really change things for the better. 3 years is a huge difference. Keep in mind, 4 years ago, the iPad didn't exist. A year and a half ago, the Chromebook itself didn't exist. So 3 years is a long time in terms of technology, and I hope that we can take advantage of this opportunity that we have.
So tell us more.
To tell you more.
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
Wait.
Sorry, there is more here. On the K2, you have the tablet. Okay, so now throw that into the picture for a second. We've had the iPad, we have the Chromebook, now you have the tablet. So what is, as most know, I'm not that great with this stuff.
So right in front of you right now is a tablet. An iPad is considered a tablet.
This is called a tablet now?
It's called a tablet. And it's its form factor, and so it doesn't have a keyboard. And so at the K2 level, given that at K2, mostly K, kids are still learning how to read and write. Keyboards aren't exactly all that useful. And certainly they can use them, but a tablet is probably a better form factor for that age.
So the main difference then between this
Why,
and
you know how I
this
got it?
is
So, you have
the keyboard is
So you're
not
making
set up
third grade.
like that. And my second question, my second part to this. We've had the pilot programs with the iPads and the Chromebooks. Have you surveyed the kids that have used them, both the iPad and the Chromebook, to see which one has worked best for them and the teachers? Okay. And so it's coming
It
back.
surprised me, and it was interesting that it just happened to work out this way. The 5th graders at Gustafson School, who are now 6th graders at the middle school, they had iPads and now they have Chromebooks. And overwhelmingly, from our focus groups with students, they've told us that they prefer the Chromebooks, which surprised me. And they say the form factor, the usability of the keyboard, they like it.
So it's mostly with the keyboard.
It's mostly the keyboard.
Hasn't all of our pilot programs been with the littler kids? What do the high schoolers think?
They don't have any.
They
don't have any.
They're on their smartphones.
No, there's one,
We have some devices at the high school level, we've done some with certain classes with iPads, those sorts of things, but high schoolers are all over now.
Are we looking to do this at the high school since Elise is up first, or are we looking to go full throttle?
We're looking to do this at the middle school and the high school.
Chart.
Part of what we heard from students in the 6th grade when we did our student focus groups was they can't imagine going from what they have right now to not having it. And surprisingly, we thought this wouldn't be the case. We thought we would hear that from the kids. What we heard it louder from was the teachers. I don't want to send my kids from 6th grade to 7th grade if they're not going to have that device. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me as we talked to the kids.
It is amazing what they're doing.
That made no sense, really. I mean, come to think of it, if you give someone, then you're gonna skip a year without that technology. It's gonna
There's
be
that loss
right.
there.
Okay.
And the
So at least
teachers
that
express
makes
sense.
Yeah.
So there is more. So from an infrastructure standpoint, there's more costs, of course. But from an infrastructure standpoint, we're doing very well. But our wireless system was designed and implemented in 2009. It was designed prior to the iPad existed. It wasn't designed for the volume and the density that we're looking at. In fact, nowadays, 57% of our students have smartphones, and they have their own device. We anticipate that most schools are planning for students to have 3 devices, so planning up to something on the order of 90 devices per classroom. So we need to upgrade our wireless systems to accommodate that density.
Actually, quick question, can they use their, their smartphone on our?
Yes, if they log in with their ID and their password, they can use.
Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
We
So-
urge that?
It's up to the teacher.
Yeah.
It's at the discretion of the teacher, but certainly they are able to. One-time cost of $300,000. In addition, we need more bandwidth. Now, the national guideline is 100 megabits per every 1,000 students and staff, so we would need roughly 700 megabits. We're recommending a gigabit. These are the kind of the geeky numbers. It's really fast. That's all you really need to know. Really fast, but from 2 separate providers and cutting it in half, because the internet has become so important to learning in the classroom that when it goes down, it's very problematic. And nowadays, with park testing, it can disrupt school schedules literally for weeks when the internet's down, depending on the length of the outage. So we want to make sure that we have multiple carriers and multiple paths that provide that internet bandwidth, so that if there is a blip, it doesn't cause serious issues. And relatively, that's it's about another 36. Would cost us, we expect another $36,000 per year.
And
I know this is probably a laughing thing, but I'm going to say it. Since the state wants us to go to this park with computers and all that, shouldn't they be paying for all that? Should be paying for it.
I'll let Brad talk about it.
Sure, in January, we talked about the Online and Blended Learning Consortium with 4 other districts. There were some costs that were prohibitive, especially in the first years of implementation. The board directive given at that time was, this is something that we need to explore. This is where education is headed, but we need to do it in a more cost-effective way. We heard you loud and clear. I've begun work with 4 other districts again, not the same 4 districts, for other districts who are working through this process with me. We went through a process of really identifying who are the students that we want to better serve, and how can we serve them better through online and blended learning. Of the 5 districts, we really had some commonalities in the populations that we wanted to serve, who are the students that we wanted to serve better, including all students. We really feel that if you look at where education is headed and the statistics out there, we need to prepare our students for taking online classes and to really learn and grow in a blended environment. So as we talked, our focus was on really working together across district lines to provide high-quality professional development and work groups for our teachers for blended learning, making the tasks manageable, especially in the first couple of years, and then also vetting together and possibly purchasing together some online content to better serve some of our students. An example of that would be homeless or homebound students. So we have a number of students who are homebound for a variety of reasons. Right now they receive tutoring, but it would be great to augment that tutoring with the consistency that we would find in online education for those students, to better serve those students. And when we looked at our own numbers for homebound students, we average about 65 students per year, K-12, who are in a homebound situation at some point or another. And I was kind of surprised at the numbers, but they're pretty consistent over the past 3 years where we've looked. We'd all like to do a better job with our homebound population, and we feel that online learning can fill that niche for these students. So we have some similarities in the student populations that we want to serve, and in bringing high-quality professional development to our teachers. So everyone's kind of working through their own process. That's why there's nothing formal yet, but we definitely have a shared interest and a common vision for what that could look like.
What's an average cost per student then for like home tutoring or home education that we currently spend for homebound students?
They receive 10 hours a week, and I couldn't tell you the cost per hour that we pay. $30 an hour. Thank you.
What constitutes a homebound student? I mean, I know they're homebound, but is it like, do they have to be home for 2 weeks or more, a month? Just, are they out the whole year?
Could be. Yes, there's medical issues.
Well, yeah, okay, but I mean,
She had to miss so many days of school.
but at what point?
Right, is there like
You know what
a
I mean?
minimum number that's
That's what I'm
been in
saying.
their home?
There's a number that starts to trigger these processes, but
10 days.
it doesn't have to be you're out for an
Okay.
extended period of time. It could be you're receiving treatment for X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be out 2 days a week for 6 weeks, like chemotherapy for a
Okay.
child.
Okay.
You could be out
So it's
a
not
number of
just
days, so it
in a
could
row, it can
be
be.
in one in a row or
Okay.
intermittent.
Okay.
Can we find or put together, I'm just interested to see like how many hours of tutoring do we have to provide to our students, like over, like the average over the last 3 years or something, just to kind of get a cost recovery?
Yep.
Except you're not saying we would eliminate that tutoring, are you? You're saying that online learning would supplement because you don't think 10 hours a week is necessarily enough for a
Right.
homebound student.
I believe the minimum is 5 hours per week that we would be required to provide. We provide 10 hours a week. We still think that's not enough, especially if the student's going to be out an extended period of time. They need that continuity of curriculum. So, you know, there's the possibility of recouping some costs in terms of lowering the amount of hours that the tutor's there and then augmenting that. But I would want to just do a better job serving those kids,
Yeah.
not necessarily.
That's
Well,
the
cutting,
part of this.
and I understand that too, but I kind of wanted to see what a cost basis that we're looking at right now, you know.
I can look at, for the about 60 to 65 students per year, I can look at the total number of hours.
Yeah, something like
It's
that.
like
We'll leave something simple like that,
I mean,
just for
that it would
my,
help with communication. There's a third party involved when they're at home, tutor, teacher, counselor, so this would also help with that. So,
You're talking with 3 other districts, so of the 4 total, sorry,
5 districts total.
Okay. How many students are you talking there? I mean, we're at 65, what are the rest of them? I mean, what are we sharing in?
Probably, yeah.
Districts are roughly the same size that we're talking to. There's one district that's twice as large as us. So I would think that, you know, this is something that we identified in talking around the table,
Yes.
was
No,
a
we
significant
gotta talk about who we
issue for
are.
us, for all of us.
No, that's fine, I'm saying,
No,
so
we're
we're
not,
looking at the same kind of numbers, so we're talking in the hundreds, we're not talking.
Hundreds of kids.
That this
And
would
these
all.
are just students who are
Mhm.
homebound, not homeschooled.
Correct. Homeschool numbers, none of us have any idea how many kids within our boundaries are homeschooled.
Is the collaborative working, do you guys, are you putting together a budget or anything like that? Are you working with a consultant like the last one, or you
No.
gonna work on your own?
We're working on our own, and we're really going through the process of defining what that work is. There's lots of communication that still needs to happen with our faculties and staff, the other school boards, the other superintendents. So at this point, it's preliminary, but we're looking to do something that would probably be accomplished within our current existing budgets at this point, until we really were sure about a direction forward in terms of content purchasing or license purchasing.
Is our administration comfortable with the school district you're working with?
Absolutely.
Are you?
I guess we'll let you do.
Is this something you're looking at for like next year?
There would be a scope of work that we're trying to lay out together that would take place throughout next year.
You know, traditionally, folks have said that this is something, you know, could see this coming in the future, but it's far off. And there was a book that came out in 2008, it's called Disrupting Class. It's written by a professor from Harvard by the name of Clayton Christensen. He and his research team looked at the adoption of technologies over time. They looked at the rate of adoption of radio, they looked at the rate of adoption for television, and they looked at the rate of adoption for the internet, a number of other technologies. And they actually were able to develop an algorithm that would map out that rate of adoption and also be able to apply that rate of adoption to new technologies. And so they used that algorithm, they looked at online and blended learning in schools and where they were in 2007, 2008. Now we're 6 years from that time when that book was released. And at the time he had predicted that 50% of all high school courses across the country would be taught on online or blended, 50% online or blended by 2019. I remember reading that book in 2008 thinking, you know, I don't just believe it, but I just don't see how we're going to get from here to there. That was before the iPad was invented and the Chromebook and a lot of these other learning platforms and technologies that exist now today. So I can see it, and every indication is that this projection is right on target. And I actually had the pleasure of hearing Michael Horn, one of his co-researchers, collaborators, just last week, and he said, you know, we might be off by 1 or 2 years, but it's going to be pretty close. Everything that we thought then is really holding true now. So it's something we're excited about. Now, this is the actual easy stuff, I would argue. Getting the devices in the hands of students sounds monumental, big, sounds expensive, but it's actually the easy part. Once we get it in the hands of students and teachers, the real hard part is supporting teachers through that change. And it really is nothing less than a fundamental cultural shift for learning and delivery of instruction and learning for students. So the support component, while we're well poised with our infrastructure to make that happen with instructional coaching, with our technology support, and our leadership for curriculum and assessment and professional learning, we've got all the right ingredients. There's a lot of work to be done, but this is really the easy part, and it's within our grasp, it's within our reach.
And last night, you and I were exchanging emails, and I just want to go on the record and say that you have my full support, but I have deep, not concerns, but I just want us to be very aware of the security and the data breach security that we have to be aware of. And I want us to do the research, because I do not trust Google. I know that they're out there and they're collecting metadata, and they're collecting it, they will collect it on a 6-month-old if they could. So I just want us to be aware, and and it could be the lawyer in me, but I want to know that we are looking at all of these agreements, and we are not, the teachers are aware, and we have good policies in place, and the teachers know what these policies are, and they're not logging on to apps that are gonna violate FERPA or any of our legal obligations, because we gotta be really careful in these new frontiers, because we're dealing with kids here, and we're dealing with parents that don't necessarily understand these new technologies and these new frontiers, and we're dealing with kids and their privacy rights and the parents' privacy rights. So we gotta be really careful about data breaches, and we gotta be really on top of watching what Google's doing.
I wholeheartedly agree. Just for the record, too, Google has a separate agreement for schools, for Google Apps for Education districts. So there's a separate policy that, our students.
I still think they're behind the scenes.
It's definitely absurd, and I would, it's definitely, that, we keep a very close eye on it. I actually have the privilege of serving on a task force that's working with my counterparts from across the country and a number of lawyers at the Harvard, the Berkman Center for Cyber Law, and looking at privacy, and we're actually developing a toolkit for my counterparts across the country to make sure that we're doing all we can to protect students.
Anytime we're saving anything in the cloud, I know the cloud's a wonderful thing, but the cloud's also a new thing, and so we gotta be security and data breach security.
That is a concern whether we go this route one-to-one or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an issue that we have to be aware of, that there could be a 17-year-old Russian teenager out there that's trying to breach Target. They're gonna try to breach anything that they can get their hands on, so we just need to be, as we move in these areas, it's very exciting and it's very, but we just gotta make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's.
With that, I would like to invite you to visit the middle school and see learning in action with Chromebooks and instruction. There are 2 dates I'm going to share with you, and I'll send this out to you in an email as well, but on Thursday and Friday of this week, so the 27th and 28th, you have an opportunity, if you're available, there's 4 days, but there's coming up as early as this week. From between 12:45 and 3 o'clock, the board is welcome to visit the 6th grade at the middle school, and there's a number of classrooms that we have available for you, so you can certainly contact me. And also the 8th and 9th of April between 10:20 and 11:50. So I will write that out in email so you don't have to write it down now, but you're welcome to join us, and I hope you will.
And you'd want us to contact you?
Yeah.
Only those hours.
Only those hours. Well, it's a lot to prepare. You don't know what's going to end up happening in the classroom at that time. But so again, this was for information and for discussion tonight, and we'll follow this up with some formal recommendations for the board to contemplate in April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Moving on to our action section of the agenda. First, we'd like to discuss the fiscal year 15 capital and staffing plan.
So this is the same plan that we brought to you in February as information. We requested any feedback, and we discussed it at the Finance Committee of the whole earlier this evening. We have not changed in any of the capital projects that we estimated or the staffing plan. We did add in some more information about how we would scaffold the hiring of these and posting of these new positions, because we are cognizant that we still have bargaining going on, so we don't have firm numbers on salary and benefit expenses for next year. Also, state revenue, as always, is in flux and unknown until much later in the year. So what we are asking you to approve tonight is really a plan. We are asking you to dedicate an additional $400,000 towards capital projects over what we expended this year. And we are asking you to allow us to increase our projected staffing by the 11 FTE as outlined in the plan. We will not begin expending funds, and you are not approving any specific projects at this time. Those would come to you in individual projects, as they get bid and let for work. But this will give us direction and provide us the parameters for staffing and capital to develop next year's budget. So I'd be happy to answer any final questions, but otherwise we would ask for your approval.
I have a question for Brad. I just want to, I know coaching is on here, and I just want to ask a couple questions. We had a presentation last time. I serve on that, but there's been questions about other districts not having any type of coaching. Is that the case?
There are some districts that do not use a coaching model for their professional development, but there are many districts that do. St. Charles, Naperville, Downers Grove, Haneland, Schaumburg are all using an instructional coaching model within their schools.
And if they're not using an instructional coaching model, are they using something for professional development for their staff?
They're probably sending people out to workshops, which we've seen to be less effective.
Is coaching permanent? If we approve this plan, is coaching permanent?
What we talked about with the instructional coaching group is that our ideal would be that they would work themselves out of jobs. And I think that this will be a process over a number of years, but really that's the goal of the instructional coaches, is to take people where they're at and bring them to where they want to be instructionally. And we've really approached the instructional coaching model here in Batavia not from a deficit model. This doesn't mean that teachers are deficient in skills or that they're lacking in something. It's really a strength-based model, taking teachers where they're at to where they want to go with their kids. And I think as a continuous improvement district, that's what we're all about. We have really good teachers in our district. I'm so proud to be a part of this district, but we're all working to get better. We have differing needs of our students. We have differing curriculums, different standards, different assessments that we're being asked to accomplish. This is a vehicle for helping teachers accomplish those goals and to improve student achievement. So there are many districts out there that have a coach per building. That might be something down the road that we get to a point, but we're really trying to focus our resources where we're trying to provide this professional development in those buildings.
So that actually leads me to two questions. So the first one is there a timeliness associated with this? So one of the things I think I keep hearing is because of all the changes, because of all the demands, because of the Common Core shifts, we have a need, and technology coming in, we have a need right now to implement lots of big changes in our classroom. So I'm really disheartened when we keep hearing that what does the matter with our teachers if they need coaching? And I'm so glad that you made the point that we're trying to implement change. So putting this off a year, 2 years, saying we'll get coaches later, is that a viable option, or would that then sort of defeat some of the purpose of why we are implementing coaching?
Really, we've seen that this is probably the most effective way to deliver professional development to our teachers. When we send them out to conferences, when we host in-district conferences or workshops, those are great things and we appreciate those things. But in terms of changing practice and really firmly supporting teachers, this seems to be a very effective way for us supporting our teachers. And to me, that's what this is all about. It's really how can we support our teachers better? And a teacher who takes on coaching as a means of professional development, to me, that's a sign of a good teacher, because they're looking at their practice, they're looking where they want to take their kids, and they will use any resource possible to accomplish those goals. So I think that in terms of timing, we would love to have this for all of our teachers, but we do understand the fiscal restraints and the class size issues that the district is dealing with as well. That's why this is again, last year we did kind of a small step into this. We're looking at the information that we're receiving from this program. This is another small step at supporting our teachers. We didn't come in the first year and say all 8 buildings are going to have a coach each, and we didn't take that approach to this, even though I think all teachers deserve good, high-quality, job-embedded professional development. We're really being cognizant of what our union partners have said, where we have to have a balanced approach of reducing class size and supporting teachers.
What about divisional coordinators? Right now, I know that they're very heavily getting up to speed in our evaluation program, and I know that a lot of that is dictated by our new para law in the state. Do we see them getting to a point where they will then also be assisting in some of this coaching and teacher support? I mean, I know that the para program is ultimately meant to be a teacher support, but right now it's new, it's just evaluation.
Teacher evaluation. When we approached this 2 years ago, when we started looking at this, that was kind of the idea, was that a coach could also be an evaluator. What we saw is that that doesn't really work. They can provide instructional leadership, so help teachers with strategies, those types of things. But in terms of that true coaching relationship, that relationship is between teacher and coach, and evaluation really muddies the waters there.
Okay, that's fair.
So when someone is judging you or evaluating you, it puts up barriers there. And we've been very cognizant to make sure that our coaches can work in a fashion where they're building that trusting relationship with teachers, and it's not something that, as I told you in that presentation, I don't see the names of the teachers that the coaches are working with. Some teachers will share with me, hey, I love this experience, I love working with my coach, but I don't see that. I get it in aggregate, and I look at that information in aggregate. And that was specifically built and requested by our coaches because they said, we want to do anything that we can to build a trusting relationship with our colleagues so that we can have that relationship get better.
But do you see that, again, it's a new job for our division coordinators this year, do you see them providing more of that support and that kind of, maybe not a coaching support, but a different kind of support?
Instructional leadership, yes. Coaching, no.
Okay. You can go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. How do you see it, or how do you see the coaches working in conjunction with PLC, say the professional learning committees, and how does that kind of all blend together? Does it or does it not? Or how does this all fit in? I guess I've heard all these different.
Absolutely, and that's actually a great point. I probably should have emphasized a little bit more, is that what we found with our coaches as we talk to them, their most effective strategy is to work with a team of people, not just a one-on-one relationship. That's great if a teacher wants to engage in that, but what we're seeing more likely happen is that a coach is working with an entire team on something that they're working on in their professional learning community. So we're really encouraging people, the days of a teacher going into the room, closing the door, and being isolated, those days are over. There's too much work. We have to work together. And we're really seeing that coaches are really facilitating team development as well as individual development and professional development. So it does fit together.
I just have one, John, if I can jump in before I have a couple of them.
Before you go through your.
Yeah, I just have one. Is a coach a universal title across the education field, or is it known as something else in other districts or other schools?
It's known as a million different things. So some instructional coordinators, instructional coaches, ICs, you're going to see them. And mentors is another kind of term that some districts use. So if you look at other districts' rosters, you may not see instructional coach, but you may see other titles that are synonymous with that.
A lot of this has been answered in meetings I've had, but I just wanted some clarification. Again, on the high school, the 1.66, is that for a specific area? That spot
Or
to reach?
class size now, class size,
Class size,
class size.
the 1.66?
Well, you guys are talking about coaches and the whole thing. I was,
Right, but it
Yeah,
says high
you're in the
school class
section that
size
says,
for 1.66.
classes.
yes, yes.
Probably, I know Joanne's in the audience, and probably the easy answer is, I don't know, but more than likely is that's going for math teachers.
Math teacher,
Okay.
okay. When I was,
Yes,
Yes.
I saw nodding.
A majority, yes.
a majority, yes.
for math,
Yes.
okay, thank you. I wasn't keen on hiring any more administrators, but then I, realized that with Grace McWayne and JB not having a half-time assistant like the other schools do for evaluation and stuff, I was fine with that, so I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. With the coaching, and being a former teacher, is that I understand the class size issues, and I do understand the coaching issue now, because the times have changed from the time I started to the time I retired last year. And right now, I was a most known industrial arts teacher that went into computers the last few years, that I'm still struggling at this. So I would need a coach in technology to help me through this. As a starting point, I see a positive to that. And that's a generic, do I have that right, Lisa? The coaches are generic ones, so it's not a specific math coach or a specific language arts. It's a generic one so they can help out in anything, correct? Okay. So I'm glad to see that now most of the schools will at least possibly have close to have one to help out. And I think it's a plus. I still would like to see something with the class sizes, but I just wanted to clarify some of this and where it's supported and all that. And I know with the special ed, there's not much we can do because of the mandates. So we have to follow the law.
If I understand this right, we're not adding any elementary school teachers?
Correct.
Which I have some concern based on what we heard tonight from AGS having some concern. I guess and I could be coming from the private sector, but I hate adding middle management. Can you convince me that we need that assistant principal? Because for a long time, these elementary schools have run without assistant principals.
We didn't have para then either, though.
We also didn't have evaluations.
And the
Yeah.
evaluation
Parents
system
there. That what
is
the-
over the top.
I feel like I keep asking, I'm not getting a real straight answer what the assistant principals do.
I would also add that if you talk to the 4 principals that this year have an assistant principal, basically half-time for the first time, they've made them better. What we've definitely learned in education, that working in isolation as a norm is not the most effective way to work. I would imagine in your industry that collaborating with people who are doing some of the same things makes you better in what you do, and that's basically a fact in every industry. What our principals who have assistant principals now would tell you is that having an assistant principal has made them more effective and better in doing their job. It's another person to bounce ideas off, share responsibilities. As someone who's a former principal the last 8 years, the demands of being a principal, my first year as a principal, to the demands of being a principal last year, with all the accountabilities, all the things we put on the list, there's no comparison. The game has changed considerably for our school leaders, and to try to do it alone and to get the results that our community demands, I think it's very, very difficult. And so we have seen this year, and it's just March, what a great impact our assistant principals have had in ensuring that we're following policy across the board, making our principals more effective. I mean, in the collaboration there, it's been dynamite. And to be honest with you, I feel bad for our current principals that do not have an assistant, because they're missing out. So I guess I'm trying to make a case for why that's so important as a former principal.
Melanie, I'll tell you,
I think assistant principal is expensive, and I'd like to see, I'm hearing the BEA wants more teachers, I'm hearing the parents want more teachers, and I'm seeing an assistant principal, and I'm seeing 2 teachers that could be hired.
The one thing I would also like to add about we're not adding any elementary teachers, we do have a surplus of elementary school teachers, and we're keeping that surplus, and we're allowing the schools to use that surplus strategically to meet the needs in their buildings. So while it's 100% accurate that we're not adding any elementary teachers, our current enrollment numbers tell us that we are 4.0 FTE in surplus, and we are allowing that to stay.
Okay, so we will see some class sizes drop.
And even if we decide to, and I'm asking my board member, if we approve the 3.0 FTE, and as the numbers come in, or we get into this summer and we're putting our classes together, do we have room to possibly change class sizes if we see something that's, I know this is just, we can change that. We can change class sizes. This isn't set, this is what we're approving, but we have that ability to
So are you saying add staff, or are you saying
add staff?
reallocate?
No. Well, I guess it would be both, because we have to fund that new class, teacher. But if we see, right now numbers are telling us we're okay, but if we look further and it's August and we're like, okay, we really need to add another classroom, we can still do that.
There's a point in the summer where reallocation becomes unlikely, but you can always add staff. It's very common that as final enrollment numbers become real in August, that we realize that there is a bubble that needs to be addressed. Interventionists have been used in the past where we bring in somebody to address the core classroom areas, or we've added sections late in the game to address specific bubbles. You always have that ability and authority.
And Tina, I can assure you that the principals in all of our buildings over the course of the summer, they are constantly monitoring their numbers, and we're communicating with them to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of having adequately staffed buildings. So that is a constant monitoring that is going on.
Again, this is a staffing plan. That based on what we know now, this is what we're recommending we do.
Now, getting back to the half-time assistant principal thing, there's another thought that goes along with that. By all means, this is no reflection on our current principals we have. A few years ago, we brought on four at one time? Three at one time. half of our grade school staff. By having an assistant principal also provides us an in-house training ground for the future, should we have that staffing requirement. Or perhaps even in the absence of something happens to one of our principals, it means, I don't know, you have someone there to fill that gap, keep continuity going, and keep the school functioning.
I like that.
So I think it's vital, and it would bring balance, obviously, by bringing three of them together. They're working in the six, and it sounds like it's working great. I'm sure they'd all love to have an assistant. We only have six of them, you know, but at least this will bring some balance there and equity to all six of our schools. So I'm in favor of that.
Could it be possible for Nicole maybe to speak?
She's an assistant principal to share her experience with the
Jenna too is
principal.
over there.
Hello.
She doesn't have one.
Oh, that,
She's
right.
one.
Sorry,
Lou does.
Actually,
Okay.
Lou does.
Lou, do you have one?
you have that. Everyone but Nicole has.
Everyone? Okay, then maybe you'd like to speak on why you want one.
I've been a principal in this district for 15 years on my own. This is the first year that I've had an assistant, and it did, as Steve mentioned, it made a huge difference. When you're in the elementary, you're kind of the lone dog, so to speak, in your building, and while we try to work together across the district, there are those day-to-day events that you'd just like to be able to talk to somebody about, and having that person available has made a huge difference. And I think the biggest challenge is with the teacher appraisal system. I had 14 people that I evaluated this year, and that was with her help. Without her help, I would have been at almost 19, and that would have been all that I could have done. And so all the other day-to-day things would not have happened. So I see it as something, you know, I was nervous about it. I'd done it myself for years, so I didn't know what I'd do with somebody else in the building. But it certainly has been a godsend.
And that's, I was going to answer Melanie on I'm not for the middle management much either, but when I started, the evaluation was this. Somebody walked in, now this goes back 34 years. Somebody walked in, watched what I did. Most of them were probably history or math teachers. I was a shop teacher, so they had no clue. Oh, satisfactory, you're done. Now it's progressed. Now it's a big rubric, and what are they doing? Is it with technology? Is it with this? It is mind-boggling, like Kevin said. You know, you have 14 people or even 10, and you have to go in there, was it 3 times, 4 times?
Well, with a non-tenured teacher, there's at least one formal observation and several informal. Where the formal observation has a pre-conference and post-conference, plus the paperwork involved with it. So a non-tenured teacher you're looking anywhere from 5 to 10 hours per teacher just to meet the minimum requirements. And we're looking at best practice saying you probably want to do more like 10, 15 informal evaluations, and the minimum is 2. You know, so just to meet the minimum on a tenured teacher is about, 5 to 10 hours probably. And then when non-tenured, now you're looking at another formal evaluation cycle, which has the pre-conference, post-conference, plus formal observations. So it's more like 15 to 20 hours per non-tenured teacher.
So the assistant principal isn't taking any of the necessarily any of the administrative work out.
Well, that's administrative work.
Okay, not the administrative work, like we're not.
The building administration?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on top of all that.
That's on top, she's doing that as well. So yes, my assistant principal runs the building problem-solving team.
So you haven't lost any secretaries? I mean, your secretaries are still busy too?
Yes. She doesn't do any secretary.
No.
So it's just it's a cycle that a lot of people don't understand it from outside, but it has changed, so it's getting.
It's not like it was when we were in school.
No, and it's like Kevin said, it does, and it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of documentation. So it is. I mean, I see it because I've been there and I've seen how it's gone. So I understand it, and I'm glad they got the help because it is time consuming. though I don't always agree with that middle part.
Right. I think that's the most difficult thing sitting here, is trying to weigh all these highly competing, important demands on our resources and trying to find the best balance for all of it. And that it's never easy. Any other questions on the staffing capital plan? Then do I have a motion to approve the capital and staffing plan as presented?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Stoops, second by Blakely. Captain, would you call the roll?
Yep. 1 second. Blakely.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Hodge.
Yes.
Impastato.
Yes. Come back. Oh. Sorry, she said yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Stoops.
Yes.
Drummond.
Yes. Motion passes. The capital and staffing plan as presented has been approved. Next, we're moving on to the resolution authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants. Dr. Mott.
Last year was the first time in a few years that we needed to issue tax anticipation warrants. These are short-term bonds to help us with cash flow as we await the initial tax distribution from the 2013 levy that is extended in 2014. We do still expect to have a surplus budget this year. We expect our revenues to exceed our expenses, but because of the increased staffing and capital expenditures that we authorized this year, and the fact that we have not yet gotten any of the tax revenue to support those expenses, obviously our reserves are going to be depleted a little bit sooner than they were in a prior year. So we are asking for the board to authorize an amount not to exceed $8.5 million in tax anticipation warrants. We expect to actually bid these out to other municipalities or school districts at the end of March, receive some term sheets in mid-April, and actually close on the funds around the April 20th to 25th timeframe. It's the April 30th payroll is when we see our first dip below $1 million in liquid reserves, and then obviously the May expenses would add on to that, requiring the amount up near the $8.5 million. So I'd be happy to, we will be paying these off with the June tax distribution, so they will not show up on any financial report as short-term debt outstanding. They will be paid off within this current fiscal year. Happy to answer any other questions, but I would ask for your approval.
And we don't anticipate having to do this next year, correct?
Actually, we probably would have to continue to do this for a few more years. It seems like we would need reserves in the area of $25 million or so to not have to issue TAWs. That was a guesstimate, so don't lock me into that. But
how many years do you think, just off the cuff, so I can compare?
that all depends on what level of surplus budget the board wants to have. If we want to try to match up revenues with expenses, then it would be small surpluses getting us there over many years. If the board wanted to, leave a larger surplus in 1 year to really boost up the reserves, obviously that amount shrinks. So, that's more board direction as we go through the summer finalizing the budget.
Where do the reserves stand now?
25% of expenses are around $17.5 million. That was as of June 30th.
So if we had another $10 million, would have been all right.
Yes. I'm not advising that.
Just so I have an understanding.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants?
So moved.
Moved by Hans, second by Locke. Could you call the roll?
Blakely.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Hodge.
Yes.
Style.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Stoops.
Yes.
Drummond.
Yes. Motion carries. Now we're on to the policy committee report. Dr. Higgins.
Thanks. We met last week with policy committee, just like we do in the week prior to every board meeting. And we have a full agenda, and what the policy committee does is they they make a recommendation at the end of that meeting to what, we don't vote on anything at the policy committee meetings, but they'll say, let's bring these policies to the board. So the policy committee is recommending these 3 revisions after our discussion. If you'd like to see all the policies that we talked about, you can always look at the minutes and the agendas that are posted on the website. So for this week, they asked, the policy committee is recommending that you adopt the social emotional development policy, the changes that came about from all the discussions we've had as a community. You've seen this several times. Last February, or this February when we presented it, we asked if you had any recommendations and nobody gave any suggestions, so the policy committee said we're ready to go and approve that. The policy committee felt like the board as a whole is ready to adopt policy changes to policies 430 and 510, even though this is the first time you're seeing them. The reason that they felt confident that you would do this is because they do reflect changes in the law that really we need to be compliant. So policy 430 has to do with revenue investments, and the law changed, and it allows us to invest in other local government bonds if we were looking to invest. And policy 510, the equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment policy, there's some changes to the law. The Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Pilot Program Act created a new category of a new protected status for certain people. So the law requires that we update our policy to keep them a protected status. So the policy committee is recommending those 3 adoptions. Do you guys have questions? And yeah, I think 5 of you were there, so.
Yeah. All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the policy changes as presented by Dr. Hitchens.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gasper, second by
Stoops.
Stoops. Thanks. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Blakely,
Yes.
Gaspar,
Yes.
Hodge,
Yes.
Pistato,
Yes.
Locke,
Yes.
Stoops,
Yes.
Romo.
Yes. Now we're going to move on to staff and board comments. Dr. Hitchens.
I am good tonight.
All right, then I'm going to start down with Melanie. Down your left, yeah.
I'm first.
You're first. You're first.
I don't have
Just
a lot
start
to
in the
say.
middle and like
I just, as we move through negotiations with the BEA, I encourage everybody to work hard and civilly with one another. We're all a team, and I think we can work to an agreement that everybody can be at least partially happy with. I also encourage administration to, as you saw, I hesitated a little bit on the plan. I really hope that we can do more to decrease the class sizes. Decrease them. Decrease the class sizes. And I hope that we are listening to our stakeholders and our parents who obviously have some real issues that I think need to be addressed. And I encourage administration to also listen to the BEA, who obviously have some concerns in that area too. And I also encourage our stakeholders to know that we are not rubber stamping administration. Every person on this board does our homework and does our research. And as, I don't want to say controversial as the coaching issue is, every one of us, I know that every one of us has studied it and researched it and come a long way in our understanding of it. And I can speak for myself in that I think it is not another layer of middle management. It is great support for our teachers, and it makes our teachers better in the classroom, and that will be reflecting in the achievement of our students. That's all I have.
I'll kind of piggyback on your statement there. I do agree on the necessity of a coach. I feel that our philosophy is blatant in saying that, always learning, always growing. And if we're just depending on our educators to develop themselves without direction and without collaboration or PLCs, then I think we're giving a little bit too much rope to our educators to do so. And I mean, one of the big things that it reminded me of is even the greatest athletes, pro athletes, have coaches. The man who runs the fastest 100-meter dash in the world has a coach. Jay Cutler has 2 coaches, so a quarterback coach and a head coach. We all have somebody that we can turn to, whether it's a sounding board, a mentorship, an elder, a boss, a former educator who can help us grow and learn and develop as well. And it's necessary in the educational field. So that's why I wholeheartedly support this type of program. And I know it'll show dividends for our educators and our students. So it's not money we're just throwing away, and we're not just rubber stamping certain protocols. And lastly, I'm excited to see a technology push forward in our district. I worry on the cost, but I also know that my 6-year-old has an iPad and an iPhone as well. So if we don't embrace these technologies, I'm not going to be able to teach her. And I mean, if it's just going to come down to a textbook and a chalkboard, that may have been good enough for me. But if I had better resources when I was in 7th grade, back when Brad and I were there, we would have wanted to be able to embrace those technologies as well. So that's all I have to say tonight.
I would like to say I wholeheartedly agree with Melanie that I'm a firm believer in smaller class size, and I really appreciate the parents that came here and spoke tonight, and the board will take to heart what you said. Thank you, Tony, for bringing us the technology plan. Most of you know that I'm a big tech fan too. I may not always understand what I'm doing, but I do appreciate its use in the classroom. And as a parent of a son who used the technology, didn't have it, and now has it, I can really appreciate the fact that it does work in the classroom. It's been very helpful, and the teachers like it. In fact, I was told today that there were some high school teachers coming to the Bertolo to see how they were using it. The kids were excited about that, and the teachers were too. So, I do have a couple other things to mention. I'm starting to sound all of a sudden no. I did attend the Batavia Fine Arts Festival last March 8th, and that was a really fun evening. Proceeds went to the Batavia Interfaith Food Pantry. I saw Tina there that night. You were there, Tina, right? Yeah. With your bug. I think that's
John was here,
Yeah,
I was there, Greg was there.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I
was there.
I didn't see you. So you weren't the only one there.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll shun you. And then the next night we went to the improv group, and Kathy was there then. Her daughter was there performing. That was great. Very, very talented group of performers. Unbelievable. Very fun. Yeah, that was fun. I also wanted to congratulate Grace Girardi, who from Bertolo Middle School. She's an 8th grader. She made it to the finals, and I want to make sure I get this right.
Spelling bee? She's in
Yes, the spelling bee. She made it to, and Pete told me this last night, so I wanted to make sure I wrote it down. Southern Kane County District. She went all the way to the county finals. And so congratulations to Grace. And also congratulations to Coach Pyron for the best entree at the 50 Men Who Cook last Saturday night.
Oh, that's fun.
He made beef stroganoff. It was excellent. And anyone who went to that dinner, it was wonderful. Great cause for suicide prevention. So that was it. Everyone have a nice, safe spring break. Enjoy yourselves.
Big sense. You are something like that.
Yes, I know.
That's a good thing.
Sorry. Maybe Don won't say
I
something.
just, again, wanted to congratulate those 3 students, Dixon, Phil, and Cal. Or Rachel, I'm sorry. 3 out of, when I heard the number, 3 out of 80 nationwide. That's just amazing to be playing in Carnegie Hall. I wish they were still here, but I'm sure they're on practice. But congratulations again. It's just another huge star that goes on the map of Batavia public schools, and you know, I'm sure they'll represent it well. I just love having that kind of stuff, and that kind of pretty much highlights my night. So I'll
This is the best part.
Tina.
Again, just everything that my fellow members said, I agree with, and especially class sizes. I know we all are very concerned, and I appreciate everybody for coming and speaking about it, and know that it will be discussed. So I appreciate that, and that's it. John will finish with me.
I get picked on all the time. I just wanted to say that my wife and I attended the Music Buffs Gala, and that was just a wonderful evening. The performance of the performers, the singers, the orchestra, the jazz, I mean, it was just phenomenal, and the teachers do a great job in helping the kids out. Attended a law conference earlier this month with a bunch of you board members and Dr. Hitchens. It's always interesting, the laws that, and Greg knows, I put one state senator on the spot about, we get a code book about this that we have to do, and those charter schools don't have anything, and he makes the rules, and they do this, but yet they don't enforce things, and so I kind of put him on the spot, as Greg knows, because he happened to and then he walked off later, so. It's a great conference wherever we go to something like that. We know what our law partners helping us out with things. Again, I attended the Fine Arts Festival, and it's always amazing what those students and the teachers and the staff do. Kathy and I spent a wonderful morning or afternoon at the Early Childhood Center. And it amazes me the patience, the professionalism that the teachers and the paras have with the students. And we were there for a couple hours, and it was it was wonderful. And we attended the chip-in fundraiser at O Solo Mio, and the place was packed. And it's just wonderful that people come out to support the things we do for the kids that we have and that are less beneficial than others. Mine was lousy. I had the pleasure of visiting the peer leadership concert at the high school last week. The students from the PE adaptive class and their leaders were very happy to see families at the concert, and the kids ranged in different aspects, but they sang about 4 songs, and the kids were just amazing. Some of them can't even talk, and they participated in all that, and the team leaders that help these kids, it's just amazing what they do, and everybody gets something out of it. And I give kudos to Miss, I hope I say the names right, Miss Bergoglio and Mrs. McEwen. Just keep up the good work. And if they put out anything, you guys, if you have a chance, are going to do one more performance, and it's just wonderful to see. I attended my last parent-teacher conference. Even though I probably didn't have to go, I just go. And I want to thank everybody that comes out and talks to us and sends us emails and all that. We do read them. You know, I let kind of an agreement that Kathy's going to answer the emails, but I think she does an excellent job on it. I do, you know, one comment was brought up about questions and stuff. I do ask a lot of questions inside. You know, the one thing about this is that
or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. We will not have any action after closed session. Now do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Gasper, second by Stutes. Thank you. I can't believe it was just dismissed.